Hi everyone, welcome to another video with Project Engineer. I'm Sarah Dasco, and we are here doing another interview with a PMP certified project manager. And we're very lucky to have our guest here, Ahmed Ghanem. He has 20 years of project management experience. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering. He's a graduate certificate in project management. He's also PMP certified, PMI Agile certified, PMI CDAP certified. He's a Scrum Master, an Agile Master, and he has a Product Owner certification. Welcome, Ahmed.
Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for inviting me for here today, and welcome everyone.
Yes, thank you for coming. It's good to have you here. It sounds like you have a lot of educational background here, a lot of certifications like from different places, and we're very excited to hear the experiences and the knowledge that you can share with us today.
Okay, thanks a lot for this.
So let's get started with something easy. What prompted you to become a project manager in the first place?
Yeah, it's a funny story. Since I was born, my father is an engineer. All my, and the Ahmed name is a popular name in Egypt and Middle East. So all the kids in my age was named Ahmed. So they start calling them by their father names. Except me, they call me by my father professions. So they call me Ahmed the engineer. So I like it since I was very young, and I follow this process. And since my father is and my mother work in the same place, and it was one of the big pharmaceutical corporation, and they have a daycare for the kids, for the employees. So I was going with them every day, going and coming back from the factory, and I was listening to their conversation about projects, their challenges. How did my father fix these problems or the risks as he mitigating? So I like it. Eventually, I joined the engineering faculty in Egypt, graduated from a civil engineer background. At this time, back in the early 2000s, project management profession was start booming in Egypt, and they start adding some subjects in the during the undergraduate study. So I really like it, and after graduation, and I scored the highest grade within the project management subject. Wow. After graduation, I joined the American University in their project management postgraduate certificate, and I really get introduced to more about the project management. So working in civil engineering in my first company, back in Egypt, it was for building highways and railways. I started working as a civil engineer for 4 or 5 years, and then we transferred because the company was wanting to implement the project management office. So they hired me and some of our colleagues to create the project management office for the first time in the company. And since then, I started my career in the project management field.
Wow. So it sounds very focused.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I liked the idea when I was young about this engineer. And when I really joined the college, it has a prestigious of being an engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a very great destiny, and I follow it. And so far, I'm very proud of it.
Awesome. Yeah, something to be very proud of for sure. It sounds like you did mention your first project, but can you tell me about the first project you ever worked on?
Yeah, so after graduation, immediately I joined one of the governmental contractor company in Egypt, and it was a highway to connect the south of Egypt to mid of Egypt. It was challenging because it was in a desert area. There is an urban area, remotely area. So I started learning about projects and how I handle project design, project, doing contracts, managing subcontractors. Mm-hmm. So I stayed for this project for over 4 to 5 months. After that, I found that my area manager assigned me to a new project. It was to protecting the railway system in Egypt. It was passing the Nile River at one of the points, and there was some corrosion from the River Nile and the Nile River. Mm-hmm. So they assigned me for this project as a resident engineer. So that was my first. Yes, my title was not a project manager at this time, but all my job duties was as a project manager. So I was managing the project from A to Z. So really, this is made me have more experience in how to manage projects, creating contracts, doing scheduling, cost management, invoicing, risk management, and stakeholder management, because this was one of the governmental high power authorities in Egypt. So how to manage stakeholder management, and to engage them on our project. So that was my first 2 projects I worked on them. So one of the highways and the other one was Nile River protection.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. What about right now or recently? What's the most recent company you've worked with, and what kind of clients do you work with?
So the most recent company worked here in Canada now. Just I want to say that I work in 3 different countries. So I started in Egypt for 7 years, and then Qatar in Middle East for 8 years, and then Canada now for the last 5 years.
Okay.
My last recent project in Canada was in WSP Canada. So we have 3 different projects I was managing. So one was TASA project. This is building 3 new villages for the First Nation in west of Calgary. This is almost 4.5 billion Canadian dollar. So the project consists of 3 different villages from under, if you are aware, by Glenmore Reservoir. So this is for people who are not familiar, from west of Calgary in Alberta. So it has including residential, commercial, office buildings, recreational facilities, shopping malls. So this is one of my projects. Second project, we is managing the student housing for Pembroke College in BC, British Columbia, in Canada also. That was my second project. And one project was for building 3 high-rise buildings in west of Calgary for one of the clients. So at this part, I was doing as an owner representative and consultant for this type of projects.
Okay, yeah, interesting. And you mentioned that you were in the Middle East for 8 years?
Yes.
In between that, and where were you? What were you doing there?
So yeah, I started after I finished with Egypt, I went to Qatar. So I started for building the 4th line for the cement factory, the production for cement in Qatar. I stayed for this project for almost 8 months. And then I moved to Ecom, so one of the top 5 American companies. So I managed different projects. So my first project with them was building a 9.3 kilometer commercial avenue. So it was almost also 4 billion US dollar. Sorry, 5.8 billion US dollars. So to build 9.3 kilometers in length commercial avenue with showrooms and 3 floors of offices and residential apartments. And I stayed with this project for 2 years. And then I moved to Qatar Petroleum housing project to build 1,200 housing villas. So for senior management villas and for junior management villas. With 3 international schools and 1 kindergarten. And then I stayed with Ecom for 5 years, and then I moved to Dorsch, which is a German consultancy. So we built the Lucille City, which should host the FIBA Soccer World Cup next year, 2022, in Qatar. So it is 45 billion US dollar. It was converting a desert area to a complete city to host 250,000 person and 80,000 daily employees.
Wow.
So it's full of residentials and stadiums, entertainment area, 60 bridges, 2 hanging bridges, and 4 concrete bridges. So that was all under one program. So I was managing the project control side of this program. So my team was consist of more than 23 schedulers and planners for different 23 construction projects, including, of course, infrastructure, housing, residential and commercial building, the stadiums, the bridges, and all other facilities. So I stayed for this project until I moved here to Canada 5 years ago. I start teaching project management in some organizations here in Canada, and then I work in WBs Value College to design the curriculum for the planning and scheduling course. And I work for a little bit at SAIT for doing some research project simply with NASA and YMCA, a new project in northwest of Calgary. And before I moving for WSP for the 2 years ago.
Wow. It's impressive. It sounds like a lot. There's so much here that's interesting because we're talking about the project management plan, which we'll get into in a second, but it sounds like it'll be very interesting to ask you how the project management plan was helpful for you with some of those projects. Did you say, so I took as many notes as I could on that projects and the work that you were doing. How would you describe the clients that you worked with?
Yeah, I work with many diversified clients. So I was fortunate for this. So I was governmental clients, with royal family clients, private sector clients.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Here also in Canada with institutes, non-for-profit clients, and also First Nation clients. So I have different diversified in the type of clients I work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yes, and this gives me a good ability to do stakeholder management, because now I can understand or read what is the client needs from the project, what his attitude, or the way he will behave in the project. How can I manage or engage him or her in our project?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was lucky to work in very, very diversified type of clients.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. Okay, well, let's get into our topic today. I'm going to share my screen for a second just because it is a lot to take in at once. So I'm just going to show this for everyone and for you and I to refer to a little bit to start. We're talking about the 12 components of a project management plan. And this is based on a blog from our website, projectengineer.net. The blog is written by Bernie Rozaki, an engineer. And he has these 12 components of the project management plan. Now, as I think we both know, and any project manager who's done more than one project realizes, every project management plan looks different. So we're looking at these as foundational or building blocks for the project management plan. So we've got 12 things here: the scope statement, the critical success factors, the deliverables, WBS, schedule, budget, quality, human resources plan, stakeholder list, communication risk register, and procurement plan. Now, when you see this initial list, is there anything that you would add or change to this list?
Yeah, scope. No, I think now this list is comprehensive, so including everything. Yeah, quality is here. Yeah, everything is here. So
Nothing jumps out at you. Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
And what do you think? I mean, all of these have value, add value to the project, but is there one or two that stick out as being the most important?
Yeah, I believe identifying the scope statement and the WBS is the most important things for starting creating your project management plan, because this will be the basics or the foundations that you will build everything around it. So you have to define what is the requirement of your project, what is clearly the scope required for your project. And based on the scope statement, you can create the WBS.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I'm using the work breakdown structure as the foundational to start doing all other aspects of planning. So based on WBS, I can identify the activities, and from which I can get the budget, the schedule, the quality requirement, what could be the risk affecting these projects. So yes, I believe that define a clear scope statement and having a well-defined work breakdown structure will be an easy for you to create a very professional project management plan.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to basically, through this interview, we're going to go through each one of these. We're going to ask a couple questions, get your thoughts on them. Let's start with the scope statement. And what I'll do here too is I'll read some quotes from the blog that Bernie wrote and then get your thoughts on them. So the first quote from the scope statement is, "One of the fundamental responsibilities of a project manager is to know and maintain the boundaries of the project. In fact, scope definition issues are the #1 cause of project distress, which is why the scope statement is one of the most important parts of a project management plan." So to what extent do you agree with this?
No, I completely agree with this,
Yeah.
400%.
It almost sounds like you were reading his mind because he just said that. So complete agreement. So then how much time would you spend collecting requirements and defining scope?
Okay, it really depends on the type of project. In some part of world, which I mainly from Egypt, they spend a lot of time preparing and planning for the project before they tender the project for, or sending the project for tendering. So they study all the aspects of the project, what exactly is the requirement, the quantities, what is the needs of the project, and they get all of this in a comprehensive list and define exactly what they need for the project, and then they start sending it for tendering. So sometimes they take 6 months, 9 months, or even some 1 year, because they do all the design, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this will be very applicable for the waterfall type of project management. So now everything is clearly defined, and all the contractors or bidders can easily put their prices based on this clearly defined scope.
Mhm.
So yes, some projects will take, based on the size of the project, can take from 1 month to 1 year just planning for the project.
And is there a ratio or a percentage or a rule of thumb that you would use for that? So if you have a 5-year project, you spend, or sorry, I mean, we can just go with percentage as well. Like 10% of your time is on that, or 5% of your time.
Not really indeed, because it also has a factor of complexity of the project. So maybe you have a 1-year project, but it's very complex, and one 5-year project is a simple housing project, but it will take time.
Right.
So really, it's a factor from complexity and, of course, the size of the project itself.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, what I have seen from my previous experience, it's an average from 1 month to 6 months as an average to get a complete project scope.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then, can you tell us about a project where the scope was a challenge to define?
Yes, I had one project that was for a warehousing and labor accommodation, and without mentioning the company name. So the challenge that it was designed for a normal concrete structure, and then because of the owner of the project has another contract for a precast panel, which is heat insulation panels, and he changed the scope of the project to the precast panels, the heat insulation ones. So that was during the running of the project, and we don't have the clearly defined scope for this one. It was a little bit challenging for us to change the way the project was going to build. All the design has been completed, and then we are going back to create a new design from concrete skeleton to wall bearing structure. So I said, okay, because the project was running and we cannot stop it, so we said, okay, let's continue doing. And for order to pay for the contractors, so let's say he will do the walls. So we'll pay for him the cost. It was a lump sum contract. So we'll pay for him the cost of the columns and the masonry walls and the plasters.
Mm-hmm.
When he finished the ceilings or the slabs, we'll pay for him the cost of the slabs. Until we finish the second, change the scope, and we replan it, and then we continue working the project. So really, this is one of the really challenging project for us because the scope completely changed. There was no stopping period, and we have to adapt ourselves for a way just to pay for the contractor to finish the work until we finalize all our replanning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, it happened in another project during the Qatar Petroleum project, because the contractor for finishing the school was late in schedule. So we changed also the structure to concrete precast panels. The challenge here, or the risk, if the contractor will not finish the schools before the start of the academic year in September, no one will be moved to the new city. Okay, so no one of the parents will move his kids to this city and send his kids away for 1.5 hour travel by car.
Right.
So that was a very challenging project. So contractor was late, so there is no way to finish on a schedule. So the idea now we change, we make what if scenario analysis, and we have to decide to change the structure to concrete precast panels. Again, one factory will not be able to give us these precast panels in the required period. So we sent for 3 different factories, and it was a really risky to coordinate with the different factories. So everyone will put or build your panels and come to the site and just erect the panels. That was very successful because we have been able to finish before September. The school started on the academic year. So this one also the scope has been changed completely, but we're able to finish on time. But of course, over budget.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's over budget, but for the life running cost, it will be much more lower if we delay the project for the next academic year.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like there was so many other factors relying on that deadline, that start time of the new school year. Now, do you ever use SMART statements or SMART goals on your projects? The SMART goals being, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. Is that something you use, or do you use something else?
Yeah, we didn't really use it as a SMART definition. We use similar things, but yes, if we have defined any goals, so we are using something similar to the SMART. We didn't define it exactly as SMART, but the SMART technique itself, we didn't use it in most of in any of my projects before. Do
you use something else pretty standardly, or do you?
Yeah, it was generally speaking. Yeah. So when we design something, we call about If we are designing for a goals or requirement, we should be attainable. It should be can be achieved. It should be detailedly designed and explained. And then we follow for the results. And yeah, so this is the only things. It's somehow nearby smart, but we never use a smart in particular by itself.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And Ahmed, let's move on to the critical success factors. So the next component here. Again, I'll read a little quote. There isn't one specific criteria that defines success for all projects. Thus, you need to make sure you define success for yours. So on your past projects, besides scope, schedule, and cost, what have been some critical success factors for you?
Yeah, so critical success. Okay, yeah, so this is the main listing for short is to finish the project on schedule, on budget, as per the requirements, but also for customer satisfaction.
Okay,
so
customer
success
satisfaction.
criteria that to be that shows that the customer is satisfied by your work, and also yeah, this is one of the most thing, risk-free. So to try to minimize the risks of the project. So this is one of the success criteria to try to minimize the risks, and have a better communications with your client and contractors, subcontractors, and owner representatives.
Now,
so this could be this criteria to avoid any conflicts in the project.
And avoid conflict, okay. Ahmed, you mentioned customer satisfaction. That sounds like a tough one to measure.
Exactly,
Do you have an example of a time where you were able to tangibly measure that and get, you know, the check mark of customer satisfaction on something specific?
Yeah, I have two experience. One was in Egypt, one was in Qatar. Almost it's the same. Let's talk about Qatar because it's the recent one. I moved to one of the projects, this for the warehouse I talked about before. And the client was always rejecting our reports, and it was making for us a big problem for this. So my project director sent me to meet with the client and to see what really he wants, what is the content of the reporting system that he would like to see. So I go and make a couple of meetings with him and ask what is the requirement, what do you want to see, what is your owner would like to see in the reports. I collect all this requirement. I give him a format for our report. In the second meeting, I show him, okay, do you like this format? He makes some adjustments, and this report was approved. And until the end of the project, we never face any problem of this. So that was one of really very restricted client, and we have to guarantee a very satisfaction rate with him. Can give you another story, which is a real story. So one of the clients in one of our companies, we make a very good very great job in one of our projects. Who start giving us projects, but without tendering, by direct instructions. Unfortunately, we make a mistake with this client. All of our project has been taken from us. So this will show how this stakeholder satisfaction is a very great factor. So the problem, it was in the holiday season, and there is no one in the head office. And when this client called our office, so they told him there is no one. Can you please call after the holiday? So, so he said, okay, how can you call me something like this? I am a client. I'm asking you for something important. And so second day, all our project has been taken from our company.
Wow.
Yeah, so from this time, I know exactly how to manage the stakeholder and how to keep them engaged and how to satisfy them and to avoid something like this. So
yeah, I mean, hugely important stakeholder expectations and how to manage that. Let's talk about the next thing here, deliverables. Deliverables are, I mean, they're changing completely from project to project, but have there ever been common deliverables on your projects that you could see across the board?
Again, because I work in diversified project, but yes, if I'm more in residential projects, housing project, deliverables almost the same, and it will, because now we have the history or archive documents from this previous project, it helps us to plan for the next project deliverables. But again, when we work this in Lucille City, because it has different type of deliverables, so it was housing projects, commercial area, entertainment area, infrastructure, bridges, marinas. So it has different type of deliverables. And the challenge here, how we can create a unified project management plan, which can manage this overall program.
Yeah.
Because again, the deliverable will be different from one construction package to another one. So it was really challenging to find project management plan which can compromise all of this type of different deliverables.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of mentioned this in this last question here when you're talking about the customer satisfaction and stakeholder management, but how do you ensure your deliverables are accepted by the sponsor?
Yeah, it's mainly continuous involvement of the stakeholder with us, especially with the owner representative. So first, before we send him the deliverable, the inspection request, we do internally an inspection request to ensure that this deliverable satisfies all the requirements. And when we officially send it to the customer or the stakeholder, it will be approved. And then we involve the customer to final inspection for our deliverable. And hopefully, because we are doing the right steps before this, it will be approved from the client. And we keep also reporting in daily basis or weekly basis based on the project requirements to get the stakeholder involved with us with any aspects, plus the technical meetings or the weekly progress meetings if he's attending with us. So now the client is, or the stakeholders are well familiar what is the progress of the project, is any challenges, any changes, and at the end he will be satisfied, of course, with the.
Yeah. So a lot of ongoing communication, involvement, engagement.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the WBS, which you picked out in the first question I asked you as one of the most important elements of the project management plan. And Bernie's on his blog kind of says the same thing. The quote is, "The foundation of the effective management of projects starts with the creation of a WBS." So my question to you is, how often do you use a WBS?
Yeah, it's always. So it's a must for me in all my projects. Starting in project management, I work in the project control field first. So in order to do the planning and scheduling, I have to have a very well-defined work breakdown structure. So I can easily define what is work package or the activities I need to create. When I define the activities, I have to define what is resources requirement, what is the cost, what is duration required to these activities, any risk factors which will affect these particular activities, and of course, what is the quality requirement, who will be the stakeholder engaged in these activities. So really, I use the WBS as a main fundamental factor for creating my project management plan. So this will be the starting point. After, of course, defining the scope, I break down the scope to the WBS, and the WBS will be my starting point for doing all other project management activities.
Now, when I look at these projects that you talked about in the beginning, I mean, 4 billion, 5 billion, 45 billion, I mean, you're not doing all of the, you're not doing each part of every project, and you have contractors and subcontractors and all this stuff.
That's correct.
So I've heard, from other people that they don't do a WBS or they don't see the value in it because the contractors are doing the WBS. So why would they? So what would you say to that?
Okay, for this Lucille City, which is a $45 billion US, yes, the contractor is doing their own schedule, but for us as a consultant and owner representative, we are doing all of this or compiling all of this in a master schedule for the project.
Yeah.
And I can see you at this particular program, it reached WBS for a 16 level.
Yeah.
It was a construction package, under construction one. So we go down for level number 16. So it was really a very huge program.
Yeah.
Yes, the detail of activities, we can see it was until level 6. So when the contractor giving us his breakdown or his schedule, it was up to his level 6. But when we were putting it in his WBS portion, it go under and above maybe another 11 or 12 more levels. So
you take their WBS and add it to yours?
Exactly.
And you all build
their own master schedule of the program.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great insight to the WBS, because I know when I talk to other project managers, sometimes I find a lot of resistance towards the WBS, which is interesting. But to hear you talk about the benefit and how you have, you take the other WBSs and make a master it's just good to hear that there is such value to the WBS.
Yeah, exactly. It will give you a great value for this.
Yeah.
Really give you what is, yes, because this type of project, it will not be in graphical representation. We use an list breakdown.
Yeah.
So yes, it will give you exactly what is included in the project, and you will not ever miss anything about the project.
Right, right. Okay, let's move on to schedule. How important is a formal schedule on a project?
Yeah, it's very, very important because you have to plan everything, what will be the start date and finish date of the activities. If you have procurement, you have to know exactly when you need this material or equipments to come in your site. If it's a long lead item, so now you know exactly what is the date you need to acquire this in the site. So now you can start for the long lead item 6 months ahead or 9 months ahead, depends on how long it will. And also you have to coordinate between subcontractors or sub-trades when they will be exactly joining the site. I can give you a real example about this also. So one of the projects in the building, because there are many different subcontractors working together, we had something called interface management, because there is some interfacing point between the contractors working in the same working site together. So one of the contractors has been assigned earlier his contract, and he will build substations in the floor and the ground level. The other limit for the other contractor, he will doing an underground tank. It was in here. So in the schedule, or this one has been assigned first, and this one will be later. For sure, if this contractor finish his building of the substation at the ground level, and this one start excavation, it might some have collapsing. So having this schedule and interface management, we can decide, okay, yeah, this one have to wait until this one finishes structure first, so it will be safe for him to start this. Without having the schedule and fixed date, we cannot plan our projects. And another example also, we find that for us to review the submittals from the contractors, the shop drawings and the IFC drawings, and even for the material submittals, our engineers were very overwhelmed by the number of submittals. So when we review the schedule, we found that in this contractor schedule, he put that this submittal will be later in the year, but because he was available and have some available stuff, so he finished all the submittals and he sent it us very earlier. So it make overwhelming for our staff. But again, because we have the schedule, okay, we said, okay, we don't need this type of material now, so we'll delay the review until we have an available time, and we can now adjust our timing based on the available schedule. So it's a very, very good tool to plan your projects and manage your project.
Yeah, and just to, sounds like, have a focus and to keep your, like a laser focus almost on what's needed right in front of you, rather than, like you said, something that can wait. If you can delay that a little bit, it's not a burden on your mind, it's not a burden on your time, but you can, push that out.
Yeah, and again, for the schedule, you will use the critical activities. So this is the nearby attention. So if you are delaying some of the activities which is critical, it will delay your project. So now again, the schedule can give you indication which critical or which activities are critical or near critical, or has some flexibility which you can delay.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So let's move on to budget. I have a quote here from the blog again. The temporary nature of a project requires that a well-defined budget is in place and that it is actively managed to keep it from sprouting roots and growing like an obnoxious weed. We're getting a little more metaphorical here, but have you ever seen a budget grow like an obnoxious weed?
Okay. Again, it depends on your project. Which type of contract you are using? Is it a fixed price or cost plus contracts? Yes, for a fixed price, again, the risk was the contractor, but for us as an owner, when I'm talking about the owner side, I know that exactly what I will pay, but the contractor for sure will this. One of the projects we work on it, the budget increased exponentially because it was a bad estimation, and the type of the material was wrongly estimated. So it was assigned that the 1 meter cube of stones will cost us 14 Egyptian pound. But this because he's a project manager based on a limestone type of project. But because this project was in the Nile River, limestone will not be able, it will dissolve in the water. So we need to use sandstone. Sandstones is 140 Joshua, so 10 times the cost.
Oh my
So that was 90% loss on this type of project because this was wrong type of estimation. But if you are talking about the cost increase because different or changes, yes, we work on some type of projects because there are many changes. Yeah, let's speak about this 9.3 kilometers showrooms in Qatar. So the original plan is only showrooms, so ground and first floor. After we finished the design, they said, okay, no, okay, what about adding 3 more floors for residential housing? Okay, so this project stopped for 8 months exactly, and to plan it. After we finish this, okay, so what about adding a parkade under this showroom so people can come and park in the parkade in the garage? So this add more increases in the cost. Mm-hmm. Later on, the client finds that okay, many people are asking for offices spaces in this area, so it will be more profitable for the client that he transfers some of the residential apartments to an office and commercial offices. So that was another change in this program. Mm-hmm. This project was a cost plus, so there was no business program for a fixed price. So whatever the contractor will pay for him plus his percentage. So this is why the cost, or was an real example where the cost has been exponentially increased, I think 5 or 6 times because of the many changes.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of contract you said? Cost plus contract?
It was a cost plus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I guess that's the obnoxious weed that can grow, right? When you have one change after the other. Let's talk about quality. What are the, so I guess, okay, I've got 2 questions here, but because you have worked in so many different fields and have had such a variety of projects, starting with this first question might require a little bit of tweaking, but are there particular industry standards you use when planning quality into your project?
Again, so it based on the company I work for. Yeah. So when I work in the German consultant, we are using the DIN, which is for the German standard. Again, for ecom, we are using the American standard, and of course, when I was in Egypt, we are working the Egyptian standards. So based on the country you are working in, the type of the project, you are working with different type of standards.
Yeah.
But frankly speaking, the most project which has a very high quality requirement was building the cement factory in Qatar. Because this one industrial projects, it's a very expensive project, and any small mistake can lead to a disaster in the environment and everything. So that was one of the biggest projects. We have a very quality control. Yes, of course, I didn't do it myself, but we have our quality team. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this was one of the most projects that we have a very specific quality requirement in this type of project.
And was it an international standard, or was it a standard from Qatar?
No, because the consultant and the designer was a French company, so we're using at this time was the French standards, and we have also French consultant was out on the site.
Is there a standard international that was applied to multiple projects that you used, or was it just specific to each country?
It was specific for each country, yeah.
Okay.
In Egypt, for sure, we had to follow the Egyptian standard. Yeah. In Qatar, it was somehow flexible based on the designing company, so we can follow the American or the European or the German or French standards. Whatever is a designing company are using their own standards.
Okay. Yeah. It's very interesting to hear that, from each country to country, how it's changing. The next component on the project management plan is the human resources component. How important are human resources? And can you think of a time when the team, the human resources, made or broke the project's success?
Yeah, okay. For sure, human resource is the most important one of the most important aspects of project, because the one who is doing the project is the humans themselves. Mm-hmm. So of course, careful consideration for selecting your team, qualified team, and keep them motivated, well trained. It will help your project to be a successful project. I was really lucky to start in my career when I was a young engineer. Was one of the amazing project managers. He spent even his sharing with you, even asking you for personal. And I had one exams I was a basketball official, so I have my running exam. So after I finished, it was in a weekend, he called me, how did you do in your test? Did you run and everything? So really keeping the aspect of the social emotional intelligence with your stuff is very great, because really they are the one who are doing the work for you. So again, careful consideration for them when first you hire them about their experience, qualification, skills. This will give you a good indication that this project will be successful. And after you hire them, how you can engage them, train them, treat them, giving rewards. So all of this will play a very good, important role for achieving success in the project. So again, as I said in this Lucille said to you, I have the 23 schedulers. So when they first come to my team, I have to train them first. This is a requirement of your project. This is what is expected from you to do. I give him all the templates and the formats that he have to use. And then I have to follow with him and train with him or her for the next couple of months until I'm sure that he is familiar with all what is the requirement of the job. If he or she has any problems, complaints, conflicts, my door was open for them to come and to talk about this. So majorly my time was going from one package to another package to meet with my team and to see how they are working, if there are any troubles or any impediments. So yeah, I think building a good relation with your team will be helpful for them and for you to have a very successful project.
Now, 23 schedulers, that's not just your whole team. There's more to the team than that. What do you think, or was there more?
There was another 30 project moderators, which are the one who are creating the reports.
Yeah.
Also this diversified or separated in each work package. So, but my main team was 23 schedulers, brought these 30 project coordinators.
So I've heard, different statistics, different numbers on what's the magic number for how many people, how many employees, full-time employees, a project manager can really manage well. Some think the magic number is somewhere between 7 to 10 people. Some have said that once you're more senior in your skills and experience, you can manage up to 25 full-time employees. Do you think that there's a number of people that you can reasonably manage well?
Yeah, this number, because again, it depends. If you are giving them all the required training and you are just delegating them for doing the work, there is no need to micromanage them. So you just give them what is the requirement. This is your tools. This is your training, and you can just monitor them for a while until you are 100% sure they are doing exactly what is required from them. And then you can just manage them from a high level, getting their high type of reports beside your team. So I think you can just manage for this number of easily managed. But if you are really micromanaged, there is no time for you to manage a number of people. Yeah.
Okay, kind of on the same topic as stakeholders, the idea of communication and managing people. I have a quote here from the blog. It's easy to forget a few small ones, stakeholders, and it's inevitable that those small stakeholders will have a disproportionately large influence on the project outcome. Can you tell us about a time when stakeholder planning was critical to a project?
Yes, one of our clients was a member of one of the royal families, so it was really critical to understand how we can interact with them, how we can engage them, because of course they have very busy schedule and they are not approachable for them to attend meetings and so on. So of course they have their own representative, but again, this type of projects we really have to manage and how exactly we engage the stakeholders with this high profile stakeholders. So we have to really plan how to not to upset them, to how to engage them, keep them informed about the project, stay getting their support for the project. So this was really one of the important success criteria of this type of projects. Other type of projects when you are working in governmental agencies, also in Egypt, because they have to follow some long bureaucratic procedures. So you have to also to engage those managers in order to facilitate your type of work. So yes, of course, we're um, not asking them to do something against the law, but just to uh, make it not easy also, just to engage them to support the project, and if there's any troubles or impediment to the project, they can help us to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is type of project we really have to a very great stakeholder engagement.
Mm-hmm. Now, if I go back to the client with that was part of the royal family, was there anything that surprised you or that you had to learn culturally, or even just etiquette that was surprising or unexpected, and how to engage that stakeholder?
No, there was really normal people, and yeah, so yes, it was a plan from my family, but they are very approachable, and speaking normally, and
Yeah.
there's no any difference between us and them. So it was really very easy to talk with them and approach them. The only challenge, they have a very busy schedule. So
Yeah.
in order for them to attend our meetings, it was somehow challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we try to send our report and communication. And of course, they have their own representative, which is the link between us and them. So yeah, but we didn't find this big problem with working with some people of the royal family.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Okay, so again, we're going to segue into communication here, which is a good thread between the last couple of components of the project management plan. So this is communication, and the quote here is, "The biggest source of project issues tend to be the project scope, deadlines, and budget. But poor communication makes it worse, and often the lack of communication is the only reason an issue arises." What do you think about this?
Yeah, I completely agree with this because in order to facilitate the work of the project, you have to ensure a good communication between all parties of the project, from the client, from the subcontractors and the consultants, any other stakeholder like governmental agency which can affect your project. So we face sometimes that one of the clients said that I did not receive this information, or I am not aware about what is happening in the project. So perfect communication planning, it will overcome all of these problems. It will keep them engaged, well familiar about the project. And I give you one also example, because one of the communication has been missed by one of the clients, and for 8 months there is no reply for this, and this material has been delayed for 8 months. Of course, the subcontractor make a claim for a delay, and it was his right to have an 8 months extension of work, because this one we send it to the client, but there is no follow-up from the client side. It was delayed for getting the approval, and it caused an 8 months of delay of this project.
Wow.
So yeah, so communication is really one of the important success factors of any project.
Mm-hmm. So how do you plan communication into the project? Do you survey, or do you meet with the key stakeholders to find out their requirements? Like you mentioned the one project in Qatar where you had the client rejecting reports, and then you went and you revised how you're doing the reports. But now, do you do anything upfront at the beginning where you find out what they're looking for?
Again, it depends on the type of contract, because some contracts are specifically mention what is the requirements of communication. Is it weekly, bi-week, in daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? Mm-hmm. So if this was not specified clearly in this type of contracts, before we start the project, we make the draft type of reports and we send it to the client. That will be our reporting system. Do you have any additions or you have some modifications? So we get his or her opinion, and then we come back and we adjust it, and then we can send it back to the client.
Yeah.
If the client does not have his own type of reporting, because we work with some clients, we have to follow their own reporting system.
Yeah.
So it depends. So if the client has his own system, we have to follow it. If not, we are proposing this is our system. And again, one of my projects I work for this, there's conflict of the communication, because the client required the scheduling was in Microsoft project, and our company regulation was in Primavera.
Mm.
So we have to create the schedule in both softwares to
Oh,
fulfill the communication requirement for the client
yeah,
and for our company requirements.
yeah,
It was a double work, but again, you have to follow the
yeah.
requirements.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that because obviously for your own project, you have your own metrics that you're tracking and your own way of monitoring the project. So then if your client is requesting something else, because they have their own system and their own metrics and everything else that they're monitoring, I was going to ask you, does it end up with you doing it twice or three times?
Exactly, yes, yeah. And even here in Calgary, some of our projects, we work with some of the clients, they have their own system.
Yeah.
So we have to do their own type of reports. And because we are using another reporting system internally for the company, so we add the information again in our internal system. So yeah.
But the benefit obviously is then the customer, the client is satisfied because they're getting what their requirements met. But then also internally for you, the company and your organization, they have what they need as well.
Exactly. And they are aware what else happening in the other projects.
Yeah. Okay, we've got two components left of the project management plan. The second last one here is the risk register. And the quote here is, one of the most important traits of leadership is to prepare for the unexpected. Now, my question to you is, if project managers are considered leaders, how important is it to be prepared for the unexpected?
Yeah, of course, risk is one of the most important factors, because if the risk happens, it can completely damage the output of the projects or cause the project to be cancelled or terminated based on the severity of the risk. So if you have a well-defined risk register and define what is the probability and impact of each risk can happen in the project, you have a very good mitigation plans. This will ensure the success of your project. Simply on our project, we use a very simple sheets, traffic lights, red and yellow and green for managing the risks. We did only one Monte Carlo analysis for one of our program because it was a very high budget program. But again, because it's required some specific programming experience, so we get a risk management company to do this risk management for us. So it has been done by a third party. But for other project, which is a smaller project, we can do it internally by doing analysis for the type of risks. What is P&I? What is the risk of the score as a score risk? Risk score, sorry, and then we can follow it in our weekly meetings. This risk is any risk has been now an issue has happened already as considered an issue now, and what is our mitigation plan for this?
So looking at the project you said where you use the risk management company as a third party, did you mention which project that was for, or just that sometimes you do that?
Yeah, it was mainly for this program because it was a huge one and there are many different risk factors and many interfacing factors between different subcontractors. So it was somehow high risky. So they prefer to use for this Monte Carlo analysis to exactly get what is the probability of having all these type of risks and what is the impact of those risks.
So now I've worked with a few clients too that have used a third party, and they just delegate that to the risk management company. But what role does the project manager still have in that? If a third party is doing the risk management, are you involved, or how involved are you?
Yeah, for sure we are involved because we have first to determine what is the risk. So we have to brainstorm what could be the type of risks happening in our projects and what is the probability and what is the impact, because we are, as a project manager, are the most well familiar about our project, not the risk management company. The risk management company come and we give here the company the information that we have, and they run this analysis for us. Because again, we don't know how to use, as a very limited people know how to use the Monte Carlo analysis or similar techniques to get this probabilistic and impact of the project and what is the likelihood this risk will happen. So it is better that to be done externally by someone specialized in this. And then when we get the results back, we sit with them and we check, yeah, this is the output of the analysis and this is really applicable to our project. Did we miss anything? Did any new risk will happen or a second risk will happen? So we have to know this. But again, the main input to this risk management company, it should be created by the project manager who is well familiar about this type of project.
And then once the risk management company hands you their analysis, then the project manager is managing that throughout the duration of the rest of the project.
Exactly. Yes.
And do you bring in, or did you in that particular program, did you bring in the risk management company throughout at any other point in time to redo the analysis or reevaluate anything? Or was it now solely in the hands of you, the project manager, and your company?
At this project, we just did it once. Yes, it's recommended that you do it in interval times because, again, situation will change, new risk will be identified, or the probability and impact can be fluctuating. So it's better to do this analysis every now and then. But again, it's very expensive to do this. So you have to manage how much it will cost and what will be the benefits coming from doing this analysis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, really interesting. Yeah. Let's do the last component here, which is procurement. It sounds like most of your projects have included procurement. How has procurement been planned on your past projects?
Yeah, so as we said, in this part of the world, the Middle East, we have to exactly get the contract documents is a fairly comprehensive document. Sometimes you can find the size of the technical envelope like this. So it including everything about all the requirements, the specification. So let's say if you are purchasing a computer for your lab, everything about the computer, even the brands, the processors, the RAMs, everything will be completely described in your contract. So it will make easy for us or for the contractor to price it, and then for going for the purchasing orders. When we go for the cost plus type of project, because the scope was not clearly defined at this point of time, so the contractor was giving for us some alternatives from different vendors, and we have to see what will be the cost versus the specifications coming from different type of products. And because again, the high cost will add higher interest or high fee rate for the contractor. So this have to be managed very carefully. So that was the challenging part in the cost plus contract during the procurement. So we have to review with the vendors what is their specification, what is their prices, and if we can negotiate with them for a better prices, this can be done for procurement. But for other well-defined scope procurement, it was an easy process because we specify everything during the contract itself, all the requirement of the procurement, and it is easy for the contractor to go and purchase exactly what is required for this project.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that, yeah, here, yes, somehow when I moved to Canada, I found this completely different than one I used before. So it was a little bit challenging because we don't have this very detailed specification. So we have to sit with the client, what is the requirement, and then what is available specification in the market, how much it will cost, what is the benefits, and we can offset the benefit with the cost. So we can find some option about this. So again, it depends what type of project you are working, what type of contract, which part of the world you are working in. So yeah, one of the funny things I found that someone here posted in LinkedIn, that in the specification, it required the ketchup brand for the dinner meeting, for the weekly progress meeting, what will be the brand of the ketchup will be provided to the site. So even this type of detail, it will be provided in our contracts back home. So yes, it's very, very comprehensive, maybe 400, 500 pages, giving you every single detail, what will be exactly included in the contract to avoid any conflicts or any claims in the future.
You have to have your Heinz ketchup, right?
Yeah, it's time consuming at the start. Yes, for this season, it can take from 1 month to 6 months to design everything like this. But again, it's avoid many conflicts during the process, because now the contractor exactly put his price based on these requirements, and he knows exactly what he needs to do in the project. Yes, for sure there will be some changes, but it will be manageable changes during the project.
So you talked about one of the biggest difference between Canada and some of the other countries you worked with was the size of the contract or the detail of the contract.
Exactly.
My question I was going to ask you was, is there another or any other differences in that process of selecting the seller? So moving from creating the RFP, having any bidding conferences, those conversations, reviewing the proposals, and then actually selecting the seller. Does that process kind of stay the same across the countries you've worked in, or has it been different?
I think it is still the same. Even for governmental, it is still the same, because governmental contracts, you have to make it publicly. So I think for all the 6 countries I work, it's the same procedure.
Yeah.
Again, even if you are working for a private sector or private owners, Again, if you have a pre-qualified vendor list or pre-qualified contractor list, so we just make a special invite for them. It's almost the same. But maybe in back home, we are doing two envelopes, technical and then financial envelope. So the first, we review the technical. If the contractor is qualified, so we can open the financial envelope, and then the lower price will be selected for this type of project. Here I found, yes, some people can do like this, and or other people have the same data or same information in one file. So now once you open the file, you know how much it will cost you before reviewing this technical. So this is a better, some of the changes. Yeah, but other than that, yeah, the size of the contracts are predefined, the well scope. In back home, they are using the bill of quantity type of contracts. Here they are using either fixed price or lump sum contracts or cost plus contracts. But the bill of quantity, yes, okay, you are putting one price for unit price for, let's say, for the masonry or for the floors. So how much quantity you will do, you multiply. It's similar to the M&T here, material, time and materials for T&M, time and material contracts here. We call it the bill of quantity. Back home, if you are not using the cost plus or the lump sum contracts. So this is a major difference between the different countries I worked in. But finally, the procurement stages or steps are almost the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you said the bill of quantity is equal to or equivalent to the time and materials contract, or is it slightly different?
Slightly different, yes, because also time and material only how many hours you work, what is the material provided, but again, in the other one, including the administration costs, so the time and material and everything. So let's say you are doing an highway, how much will cost you for the asphalt for 1 meter square? So whatever the quantity at the end of the project or every month, you're doing some survey, quantity surveying, how many quantities the contractor has been completed so far, multiply by the rate and get him the invoice.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had to work with a sole source for procurement?
Sole source for
if there's only one contractor available to do the work, or have you always had an option?
We usually have different suppliers, yeah. So yeah, there are different options in the market, but yeah, it's only one supplier who has this specification. No, we didn't face this. Except one of the companies, I'm not sure, I don't want to mention the name. It was building 2 bridges for us. They was the most qualified for this type of projects worldwide, and they didn't want to share the know-how, how they do these bridges. So there is no lesson learned, there is nothing. They told us, you want us to build these 2 bridges for you, we'll build it for you, we'll finish the project, but don't ask how did we build, or what is the know-how, or what is the lesson learned. This is our own experience and knowledge or intellectual property, and will not share it with someone.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
This is one of the contractors really we faced for this.
And did you end up going with them?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Did on the projects, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, we have gone through all of the 12 components of the project management plan. Are there any other thoughts that you had or final comments?
Yeah, I just really say that the project management plan is one of the key components of the project that every project manager should focus to create it in the start.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're talking about the waterfall or traditional project management, because I know now that people are using Agile or Scrum has different perspective, because they plan less in the start, because this is a completely different type of project which has more changes or more exploratory works. But if we have a well-defined scope, we can go for the waterfall, and this will be the best practice for doing the traditional project management.
Mm-hmm.
So well-defined project management plan will ensure the success of your project if you have a very well-defined scope. Other than that, we can go for Agile and Scrum or hybrid in between.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good point to bring up, because there are so many changes coming ahead, and project management is always evolving, as I'm sure you've seen over the 20 years of being involved in it. It's always changing and trying to adapt to what the current culture is. So using this project management plan, like you said, for the more traditional project management, where you have that clear scope, is very, very beneficial to the project success. Well, Ahmed, it was wonderful to have you. You have So many interesting stories, so many interesting experiences. I have notes for days. And when I do the teaching on this, so I'll do a second webinar, I'll definitely be referencing some of your projects and some of the things that you've mentioned here so we can pass that on. And I'm sure people will find that very interesting and valuable to learn from as well. So thank you very much for sharing your experience and your wisdom with us.
And thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad to be here.
Hopefully we'll see you again. So I'll just say thank you to everyone watching now. And if you want to connect with us, you can connect with us on the website, projectengineer.net. You can connect with us on social media. On our website, I should mention that we have plenty of resources. We have blogs, we have video tutorials, we have interviews. We have Nebulum, which is a project management software you can use. And we have our talent hub. So if you are looking for work, you can submit a profile and that can potentially be added to our website as well. Thank you so much for joining us with Project Engineer, where we're making better project managers every day, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.